Did you know survival can stretch beyond imagination? A Peruvian fisherman survived 95 days lost at sea, eating turtles and catching rainwater. How did one man's resilience defy nature's odds? Witness this gripping tale of endurance, proof that the human spirit is unbreakable. Watch now. The story of Máximo Napa Castro, a Peruvian fisherman rescued after 95 days lost at sea, resonates deeply with the resilience of the human spirit and the systemic neglect of marginalized professions like artisanal fishing. On December 7, what was meant to be a simple 2-week fishing expedition departed from Marcona, a coastal town in southern Peru, with hopes of sustaining livelihoods in the harsh realities of Peru's coastal economy. Yet, when a storm blew his small fishing vessel off course only 10 days in, Maximo's journey transformed into an extraordinary testament of survival against the indifference of bureaucratic systems and the caprices of nature alike. By the time Ecuador's patrol vessel Donaf spotted him over 1,000 kilometers from the nearest shore, he was dehydrated, malnourished, and miraculously alive, having subsisted on rainwater, birds, cockroaches, and turtles. This ordeal sheds light on a historical paradox: how individuals in essential, precarious professions such as fishing often find themselves navigating both the perils of nature and systemic disregard for their plight. Maximo's desperate situation echoes other maritime survival stories, including José Salvador Alvarenga's harrowing 14-month ordeal in the Pacific a decade earlier. Alvarenga, a Salvadoran fisherman, like Maximo, survived on turtles and rainwater to endure circumstances both extraordinary and heartbreaking. These incidents underline a dire question: are the systems designed to protect these workers fundamentally flawed, or is their neglect a feature rather than a bug? While Peru's maritime authorities failed to locate Maximo despite his family's determined pleas, the Ecuadorian patrols ultimately succeeded, highlighting gaps and contrasts in regional cooperation and enforcement. When examined critically, the disparity between official commitments to safeguarding maritime laborers and the actual outcomes tells a sobering story. For instance, Maximo's family launched a search in earnest, yet the practical assistance from government-regulated patrols in Peru proved tragically ineffective during crucial early weeks. Similarly, while his rescue brought collective relief and neighborhood celebrations in San Andrés, these post-tragedy displays of solidarity stand in stark contrast to systemic neglect that allowed him to languish for over 3 months in isolation. Paradoxically, this marginalized fisherman's survival becomes a point of national pride, with his reunion in Lima celebrated and even punctuated with Peru's national drink, pisco. Yet one might ask, had Maximo not persevered through the humiliation of eating roaches and the agony of starvation, would the system even acknowledge his story? Maximo's words during his emotional reunion, describing how thoughts of his mother and 2-month-old granddaughter fueled his endurance, ring powerfully, but they also expose profound inequities and vulnerabilities in our global social order. "I'm thankful to God for giving me a second chance," he affirmed, highlighting the spirituality underpinning his resilience. Still, celebrations marking his rebirth, like those voiced by his niece Leila Torres Napa, only obscure the deeper systemic questions of why marginalized workers face existential threats with limited institutional support. As one maritime expert noted, the global labor economy undervalues those who risk their lives daily, a reality disproportionately evident in fishing communities. In considering future implications, Maximo's survival prompts pressing inquiries into international cooperation, safety protocols for small-scale fishermen, and the moral obligation to address structural inequality. While maritime tragedies are often swept under the rug in favor of narratives of individual triumph, the contrast between elite beneficiaries of maritime economies and the marginalized laborers who sustain them can no longer be ignored. Will these instances catalyze policy change, or will they remain poignant footnotes in a cycle of neglect? This pattern recalls centuries where fishers, cornerstone providers for coastal economies, were treated more as expendable cogs than human beings. Ultimately, the tale of Maximo Napa Castro's survival might stir contemporary movements advocating for a restructured societal contract that prioritizes the dignity of all workers over profits and bureaucratic inertia. His story is not merely one of perseverance but of enduring an unjust system that offers rescue only by accident instead of design. What would a world look like where no fisherman could be left to fend against the insensible tides for 95 days? Let us hope this question reverberates louder than policy inaction. In my view, the remarkable survival story of Maximo Napa Castro underscores both human resilience and the profound systemic negligence that leaves individuals like him vulnerable to such perilous conditions. While his determination to survive by consuming turtles and cockroaches captivates global audiences, it is striking that small-scale fishermen, often marginalized by powerful corporate fishing industries, lack adequate protections against such catastrophes. This ordeal should compel us to question how much value society truly places on the lives of those who sustain us through their labor. Will we continue to celebrate survival without addressing the conditions that force such stories to unfold? Suscríbete y dale like para mantenerte informado.